Hello, everyone. I think we're ready. I think we're on. Notice I'm wearing this beautiful yellow. Everything's yellow today because we are diving into bees for planetary and humanitarian healing. And I am so glad for all of you who showed up live to A Dose of Positivity. For those of you who don't know me, I am Donna Maltz, also known to many as Mama Donna. And we are going to have a great conversation as we do every Thursday at 1 o'clock here. And for all you newcomers too, if you can't watch the whole show, there will be a replay up, and there will be it'll also show up on Spotify, and you can listen to that, either visually see us or listen to it on a podcast, also on Anchor as well. And for everybody who's tuning in live on Facebook and LinkedIn, welcome, welcome, welcome. Make sure you pop in any questions or comments, and we will get to them. I have beautiful Shane in the house, and also TJ here helping me monitor the conversation. So we'll be welcoming all new people in, and also addressing any comments that you might have or conversation that you would like to bring to this discussion we're going to have today on planetary and humanitarian healing through bees. And with my special guest, Dawn Barnett, who has been a longtime friend and an incredible human, and I'm honored to have her here today. And before we get going, as people are coming to the house, as always, I ask you, if you're new to the show and you'd like to get further updates on upcoming shows, the replay, or just stay tuned to A Daily Dose of Positivity, where we offer beautiful quotes every day, or that beautiful recipe, and also keep you updated on all the upcoming guests, and a stunning nature photography done by me. As some of you know, I am a nature photographer, and I love what I do, and I love sharing the beauty of Hawaii and all sentient beings, and the beautiful trees and birds and flowers in the trees. So right now, what I'm going to do, as I can see more people coming in the house right now, I'm going to read from one of my books. I am an author of now 6 books. I just finished my 6th book on how to make sourdough starter, and with beautiful sourdough recipes. And it should be published next week. And so we'll go live with that and let you know more about that in our daily dose, and also in our newsletter, so you won't miss it. But this book is Conscious Cures. And before I do that, I wanted to just thank Tel and TJ and Dawn, of course, for being here today, and all of you have shown up for the show. But to also send out one special prayers and love to Tel. Many of you know that Tel has been my assistant for the last 3 years, and she's battling cancer right now in a big way, and in China in a clinic for a month or possibly 2 months. And we're all praying for her. And we also have one of her family members started a GoFundMe, and we're going to pop that in the link right now, so you all have in the chat, so you all have time to look at it. We just thank you for your prayers, $5, $50, just whatever you can do, or just the consciousness of sending good energy to Tel. She is a light being, 36 years old with 3 children, and needs our prayers. So thank you, everybody. So this is from Conscious Cures, and I'm going to read one paragraph from, this is a conscious cure out of, it speaks for itself. Living together on this beautiful planet, our life support system, along with all the creatures, means considering the inalienable rights of all life. If we champion life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and all sentient beings, this redefines our choices and decisions as we move into the future. The earth is waiting for a treaty, but will not wait much longer. The clock is ticking, and the bees are counting on us. We have much to learn from the indigenous cultures that have so much to offer societies who have lost their human connection. Living in harmony with nature is the wisest old belief system to rebalance the earth. And this paragraph comes out of another section in the book, but I thought it was really appropriate for our conversation today that we're about to have. And it's under the inequality pandemic. It's called Stop Discriminating Against Other Species. Everything on Earth, from a weed to a rat, was put here for a reason. Weeds, like all plants, have a purpose and a place. Many are medicinal. Most restore the soil and are significant hosts for the pollinators, such as the butterflies and the bees. Butterflies and moths are a sign of a healthy environment and a healthy ecosystem. And bees that swarm give us reason to be warned. So, with that, Dawn, I want to welcome you, my longtime friend and RN, delivery nurse for over 40 years here in Hawaii. And I know some people are tuning in from the Big Island and know Dawn and what a wonderful, nurturing, and loving person she is. And we're going to find out today how this nurse practitioner who worked nights for years and tirelessly to support her family found a love and a heart and soul for bringing these beautiful bee creatures forward in our community. Dawn has created a company called Beehive Hawaii, and she practices Bee Divine. Sorry,
Hi.
I know, dyslexic. Sorry, you're right. Sorry, thank you, Dawn. Bee Divine Hawaii. And she practices natural treatment-free beekeeping in North Kohala, which is challenging sometimes. With her daughter Mariah, she shares the health benefits of bees, emphasizing their role in planetary and humanitarian healing. Through their gatherings, they educate others about bees' importance in ecological, agricultural, foresting, appreciation for these vital insects, fostering appreciation for these vital insects. With a warm hospitality and reverence for nature, Dawn and her daughter Mariah inspire a deep connection to our world. And bees are her way of expressing all of that. And Dawn, thank you so much for carving time out in your busy schedule to share all there is to know about bees and how we can all be better stewards, bee stewards and nurturers of the Pachamama. So welcome to the show, and also welcome everybody who is here live. And just a reminder, if you have a question or a comment, please pop it in the chat. And also at the end of the show, we always invite everybody to come on live and become part of the conversation. So stay tuned. So Dawn, welcome to the show. And I just want to ask you a quick question, because a lot of people, especially a lot of women I know too, or a lot of people are they're allergic to bees, or they're afraid of bees, or they kill bees. And I want to know from you, what got you into bees, and when and why?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on, and just appreciate this opportunity. And I also want to start with, I'm not a nurse practitioner, I'm a registered nurse. And I want to also say that I feel extremely grateful to the provider, the Great Spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, for having me decide early on in my life what I wanted to do, which is be a nurse and help with labor and delivery and delivering babies, and that most people I know actually are not fulfilled by their work. And so about almost 11 years ago, I started beekeeping, and I've been a nurse for 42, almost 43 years. And I feel like the luckiest person in the world, because I get to do two things with my time that are services to humanity on different levels where I receive so much reward, and it's so fulfilling, that I just feel so lucky and so grateful that this is what I get to do with my time and get paid for, and it's a service, because we need women to help women have babies, and we need a lot of people to get involved with protecting the bees and stewarding the bees, because there's many things, as society bulldozes along, with more and more and more chemicals and pollution, our bees are dying, and and we need them. For about 75%, I believe, of all food is pollinated by bees. And so,
Wow, 75% of all food is pollinated by bees.
and there's other pollinators too, but because honeybees in particular, live in the ways in which they do, because like even here in Hawaii, there's like 90 different species of bees. There's lots of different insects that also pollinate, but they're not usually in such large numbers, and so when you have beehives and you steward them, and then they're in their own life cycle, after a while, when they fill up their box or for various reasons, they decide to swarm, and they go out into nature, and then they create more and more bees. So I actually want to go back to right before I started this journey of beekeeping. I started hearing all about colony collapse, and that we were losing the bees, and something was going on. And I heard about a woman, Jen Rasmussen, who was down in Puna, teaching, and I had another friend down there, and I just went to visit my friend, and I said, "Do you know Jen? Where does she live?" And they said, "Oh, Papaya Farms Road." And I went knocking on doors, and I found her, and we talked, and I bought a bee box from her, a top bar hive, and a couple months later, she had came and taught a class at our intergenerational center up here in Kohala. And the day she came up to teach the class, she came to my house with another bee box and two nooks, which is a queen and a bunch of bees, and some bee comb and brood, which is baby bees that are just about ready to hatch. And I purchased them from her, and we set them up, and Mariah and I each started with one hive in two different locations. And then Jen, for several years, did all day Saturday, once a month class. And over a couple of years, I went about 8 or 9 times to her class down there. And then Mariah, kind of on her own, went to some university classes, and we kind of both got into it around the same time when we started hearing more and more information. And at the time, so we started in 2013, but in 2008, the varroa mite, was on some boat with a bunch of bees. They're wild creatures. They got on a boat, a container coming over here, and the varroa was introduced to the island, which these bees here had never seen them before. And then in 2010, the small hive beetle came, which is another pest that had never been seen on this island before. And so when that happened, the combination of the varroa and the small hive beetle, 85% of all the bees on this island died because they had never seen these pests before. And so everything that's on the island now, because it's illegal to bring bees to this island, however, we Kona queens and some different people that uh, make queens, provide a huge supply of queens to the whole world from here, the Big Island. And but a lot of their bees, like all commercial and all wild beehives, 85% of them died as a result of these pests coming. And almost all the beekeepers, especially the commercial ones, they all ran out at that time and got a bunch of different pest miticides and different kinds of things to put in their hives to kill these pests. And my teacher at the time, because this was still a couple of years before I got involved, she went out and bought them because, you know, she had 75 hives and ended up with like 4 after that. I hope my numbers are correct if you're listening, Jen. But you know, she like got the stuff and then she's like, no, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel right. I don't want to do that. Like let's support the bees and let them figure out what to do. And so at the time, the first treatment that people were doing was creating a drawer underneath, and they put oil in it to capture the beetles with a screen that the bees couldn't get through, but was the right size hole for the beetles to fall into. And so, but and she didn't like the idea of oil. What are you going to do with these oil traps? Just put them in the ground, a bunch of oil, weird oils, you know, different seed oils and stuff. So then people came up with the idea of diatomaceous earth. And so now, like ever since I started, I've used these drawers underneath the beehive with screens with the diatomaceous earth. And the bees, they can push the beetles off and actually they corral them into the corners and use the propolis, which is a sap, to trap them. And until they die, and then they can knock them off into the diatomaceous earth and they die. And it helps a little bit with the varroa mite also, but not as much. But if the bees are really healthy, they can actually um, they can survive the varroa. That's a little bit harder to deal with. But I personally haven't had too much problems with the varroa.
I
But
just want to say, okay, I just want to say real quick, I have learned more about bees and bees in Hawaii in the last 5-8 minutes than I can. I have so many little things I want to just
yeah,
clarify for the listeners and also for myself as a listener. You had mentioned something there. I understand 85% of the hives and bees were wiped out. And then you mentioned that we can't import the bees, but we're exporting queen bees from Hawaii.
yeah, so another beekeeper brought the Hawaii State Apiary part of the government that actually kind of came into being when all this happened. There's a program, Hawaii State Apiary program, and this gal Kai from Ho'ola Honey, she captures wild swarms, and she's also from Kohala. She brought these people to come and do a presentation at the hub several, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And that's what they said. And they said, like, it's a multi-million-dollar business, actually, raising up queens and selling them all over the world. And I had no idea about that, but I know that, you know, it's actually big business. I don't grow queens, or I don't do any of that stuff, but and there's been this law in place since the 1950s that nobody can bring bees to the islands, any of them. So they must have come like hitchhikers, you know, these pests.
Yeah.
And some islands have them, like Oahu has what we have, but a couple of the islands don't have any of these pests.
So the queens are healthy. The bee population. I'm just trying to turn a 85% negative into a positive solution where we're
Right.
seeing that the
Well,
bees are
so
coming back, and there's an
yeah,
industry of raising queens now. Queens.
but that already was going on before that
Okay.
happened. But, you know, everybody had to rebuild their populations of bees. And in Kohala, there was no bees for almost 5 years. And a lot of the people that grow fruit and sell fruit to all the different local stores and everywhere, they were not getting as much fruit, you know, like their orchards weren't making as much grapefruit or as much whatever. You know, there's a lot of local small farmers here and their farming went way down when that happened because there was no bees here for about 5 years. And then a bunch of people got involved in just local beekeeping. And then when they swarm and they go off into nature, you know, it's like slowly coming back, but it's not as many bees here as there used to be. People that grew up here is like they would go outside and all their flowers, no matter what they were, had bees on them. And
Right.
it's like gradually coming back, but it's taken a while. And the bees have kind of figured out ways to help themselves. both in nature and from what we do. But that said, so many people are using chemicals in their hives. You actually have to know your beekeeper to know, are they using any chemicals? And there's lots of what they call organic chemicals that people are using in their hives that is not good for the bees, and it's not good for us to consume those products when they have that, when they use
Can
those
you
chemicals.
elaborate on that a little more? Because I think this is super important for people who are going to buying cheap honey at Costco, or honey that's been laced with, they're feeding the bees corn syrup. I really want you to really get into that. And
So
people
I don't know everything that there is to know, and but there's a movie that I finally bought. You can rent it from the library, called More Than Honey, and it actually starts in Europe, and then it comes to California, and it goes through like all the almond orchards, and shows these big, huge, companies that are like trucking their bees all over the place in different seasons. They start in California and they go in a big circle all around the US, and they bring them to pollinate, and then they pack them all up in the trucks and bring them to the next spot and the next spot. But it showed them, talking
slave
to these
labor. It's like
guys.
slave labor, huh?
Well, yeah, but they're freaking spraying while the bees are pollinating. They're
Oh my
spraying
God.
shit. And it's just disgusting. And also at the end of every season, they kill all the queens, and then, just buy a bunch of new queens, or they have contact with people that are queen raisers. And so there's a lot of things about the business of it that's pretty gross. All the chemicals that are used, and all the shipping them around and moving them, and then they take all their honey and give them sugar to eat. They do a lot. The big business of honey is pretty gross. And in China and certain places, they're like making it in a lab, or labeling it as honey when it's corn syrup, or adding things to it, or pasteurizing it, which heats it up and kills all the enzymes and the vitamins and the minerals that are in there, or pressurizing it through these heavy filters. That honey should have pollen and propolis in it to know that it's really honey. And some people, one time I heard of a study where somebody just gathered like 30 different jars of honey and then tested it. Is there pollen and propolis in this? And the ones that weren't really honey, or had been compromised so much from the heating and the filtering and all those things. So I really think that honey is wonderful and so useful medicinally for people, but it's not, a lot of it, isn't what they say it is. It's not necessarily what's on the label. They're not telling you everything. So
Yeah.
actually knowing your beekeeper is important, and knowing how they beekeep. So my teacher, Jen, ended up writing a book called Intuitive Beekeeping, and that's what she teaches, is like, listen to your guidance, listen to your intuition about it. And when you're checking them, when you're being with them. So
Yeah.
I try to, that's what I do. And that's what my daughter does is, we try and see and listen, to what's going on, and support them, steward them, rather than just, using them for their honey.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So getting local honey, like Alan said, whenever possible. And also, Dawn, I just appreciate what you just said so much, and it stirs up my hive inside of me. And actually, TJ, you could pop in Shane, this my blog this week. I talk about the history, in the blog of honey, and I mean it's since the beginning of civilization there were bees, and they didn't have all these fancy hives like we have today. I mean, they actually used bales of straw, and how they figured this out, and how swarm of bees, someone must have hit back, and then all this honey fell in their head. I can just see Winnie the Pooh having a feast on that. But it's just one of those biblical foods that has been bastardized like so many other things in the industrial food complex. So you bring up a great point there, Don. I really appreciate this. And I would love to dive in right now to, you know, the health benefits and all the different, it's not just the honey, right? Like you mentioned the
No,
propolis,
yeah,
right? You remember? So if you could kind of like dissect you know, uh,
yeah.
the, go ahead.
Okay. Um, so bees actually survive on both protein and carbohydrate, and they actually need more protein when they're babies and younger. A bee only
Broods,
lives,
right? Broods, is that a baby honey?
brood
Brood?
is where they're capped and they're almost adults and ready to emerge.
Okay.
So they start off as an egg, and then within a day or two, they're larvae. And then for a worker bee, it takes 21 days from egg to emergence, to emerging as an adult bee, but they're still young. And so they need more protein, which actually comes in the form of royal jelly, which they make from pollens and nectars within their own body. And they feed it to the larvae for 3 days, and the queen gets fed that their whole lives. And it's
The royal
yeah,
jelly. Mm.
yeah.
No wonder they're
And
queens, right?
yeah, and then um, the brood, which are the male bees, they take 24 days to emerge, and then the queen, even though she's twice as big, she only takes 16 days to emerge from egg to birthing, and it's because her larvae is fed the royal jelly always, including her whole life. So she always has attendants that feed her that constantly, and she lays up to 2,000 eggs a day.
Whoa.
And
So so they're workers. She's laying eggs. She needs more workers. She knows that, right?
right, so she's laying eggs, and so there's like every day there should be some bees being born, because they only live for 4 to 8 weeks, kind of depending on the season and how much work there is. So they live less long um, when there's lots and lots of nectar and pollen. So the pollen is their protein and the nectar is their carbohydrate. They prefer to eat it themselves fresh. And when they have an abundance of it around them, they collect it and store it so that they can eat it in the wintertime. But in Hawaii, we have seasons where it rains and they can't fly and forage, but we don't really have a winter like other places do. So they can produce food year round, but not everything is not all flowers are flowering all year round, and different things at different times.
Well, this is fascinating to me. I'm not going to make you repeat all that about the protein and the propolis jelly. They only live 4 to 8 weeks. The queen and
Royal jelly, royal jelly.
royal jelly, and the queens in 15 day. I mean, you just gave me so much information, and
I know. I'm
all.
sorry.
Oh no, all of it's
Let me
super
talk about
important.
though the properties of the honey though,
Yeah.
because it's like it's antioxidants, it's anti-cancer, it's anti-inflammatory, it's antibacterial, antiviral, anti-fungal. It can increase your energy. It can help you with your energy. It can help with allergies, especially if you're allergic to pollens nearby and then you get the honey. It can help decrease your allergy reactions. It can increase your appetite. It can help with sleep regulation and digestion. And it can be an anti-cancer because of the antioxidants in it, reduces your oxidative stress, and it helps free up the free radicals. And it provides vitamins and minerals and enzymes, which basically are all killed with pasteurization and that other stuff that they do to it.
Wow, I just
So
want to jump up and get me some honey right now. Miracle bees, and people kill them, right? Just
right,
like
they say,
like
so if you have a beehive in your house or your yard, you call a beekeeper, call Mariah,
yeah,
and
yeah, right,
call me, and we'll come and get them so that we save them, rather than calling Orkin or Terminex or whatever to come and kill them.
right.
You want to save all the bees you can save, and sometimes when they are unhappy with their home for some reason, or just it's swarming season, then they decide they want a new home, and then they all leave and they surround the queen, and she gets on a tree or a bush for 24 hours or sometimes even a few weeks, and they hang out and send their scouts out to find a new home. And so sometimes they're only there for a short time, like the 24 hours, and sometimes they're like, we'll just make this our home for a little while. And so you never know, but it's good to call a beekeeper, if that happens. If you see a whole bunch of bees hanging out together, they're usually in that case very, very docile. They don't want to sting you because they're just protecting their queen and trying to find a new home.
Right, absolutely. So one of our listeners, Alan, just put in, which makes sense. Like when you think of a sweetener, sugar creates cancer, where John just let us know that actually it is an anti-cancer agent, fighting agent. So when we're choosing a sweetener, there is a big difference, and don't let anybody tell you they're not. And you can do your own research on that, everyone. So John, staying on the vein of health, I like to talk more about the royal jelly and the nectar and the bee and the the bee
Propolis.
yeah, the propolis, and also the I'm having a brain fart. I used to eat a bee pollen. Just eating bee
The
pollen.
bee bread.
And you're a registered nurse, and so you know about health, diet, nutrition as long as I've known you. So take each one of these byproducts that these beautiful queen and worker bees are producing for us, and give us the
Okay.
lowdown.
So pollen is their protein that they eat, and they get an abundance of it. They collect it from the flowers, and that's how they pollinate, is they go from flower to flower and there's pollen on them. And so when they collect it, they put it on their back legs and they add a little bit of nectar to it so it makes a little ball.
Right.
And then they bring it back. Now, how industry deals with it is they have these little hairs on their boxes that wipes them off, and then they collect it. And so if you go to the store, to the health food store, and you buy a jar of pollen, it's these little teeny packets. They're all different colors based on the type of pollen it is. But it's actually hard for us to digest it. We don't have the enzymes in our bodies to digest it. So it's a little, even though it's a superfood and it's good for us, it's actually hard for us to use it in that form. So if you let the bees ingest it and and then pack it away in their hexagons, it's already gone through a process in their own systems that ferments it. And that adds all these enzymes to it. And so actually eating bee bread, which is pollen in the comb, not just those little packets of pollen, it's actually a super food, and it includes the fermentation that's already happened and the enzymes that are already in there that help you break it down and eat it.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because I've
Yeah.
gotten jars of honey where it has the comb in there. And
Yeah.
so you're saying that the comb, that has some pollen in that comb, and if I chew that wax, is that good for me?
That's good. I mean, I don't recommend people eating a ton of wax. Like, you can chew it up and spit out the wax.
Yeah.
Over time, if you eat a lot of it, a lot of wax that's in it, then that might not be the best for your digestion. But the superfood is like really a super food. It's one of the best on the planet, as far as all the different nutrients and things in it.
How do you find that? What does that come in? What form? I mean, like, I've never seen
bee
it.
bread. So it's actually comb, and it's usually older comb, not always, which is sort of brown in color instead of the yellow or the white, clear young comb that when they first make it. But it's just like packed in the comb. So it's actually not usually in the comb that's when you buy the honey in the jar that has some comb in it. Usually that's just honeycomb. So you actually have to buy it either as a paste that somebody's like stirred it all up with a little bit of honey. And some people just pound it and keep the wax in there. And that's a good way to get it. Or you can buy comb that's bee bread, which is actually hard to find. And that's comb with just the pollen from the bees in it,
So
packed away.
do you make that, or does anybody on the island have bee bread available?
Yeah, well, I I could. I just haven't figured out a good way to process it. And so it's not something that I've done much of, but I actually have a bunch of it like in the freezer.
Mm.
If I could just get there.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm kind of too busy because you got to package it and you need to keep it, you need to freeze it and then keep it cold because you don't want anything to grow, you know.
So everybody wants who's listening. We want to learn more about bee bread and get all that protein and the
Yeah.
microorganisms, and that's something that's new for me. And I'm gonna be on your case to get that out of the
To
freezer if I have to come help you do that. Okay,
figure it
so
out.
so
Yeah.
so we got the bee bread, the propal. Keep going.
So propolis is different in every location, actually. Sometimes it's super yellow and sometimes it's super brown and sticky. And they call the bees collect it from the trees, from tree sap, and then they put it through their system and make it into like a glue. And then they use that to make um, waterproof their hives because the last thing they want is water or environmental things to get into the hive. And so, one of the reasons we need tools to get in to a hive to look at it is because everything's all glued down, glued together. And so
From
we
this
have to kind of
propolis.
break the seal and lift it up and look at it. And so, but because they make it from sap and they use it for all these purposes, it's also antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral. So therefore, it's good for us to ingest it. Um, I also haven't really gotten around to it. I've made mead and then distilled it and then wanted to do, well, I've collected a ton of propolis, but it's all in the freezer too. And what you want to do is freeze it and then put it in like a coffee grinder so that it's like a powder, and then put it in alcohol, and then let the alcohol extract it, and then I think you can
Okay, you know
do.
what? You know what? We're going to talk about that in a little bit about because that's an entrepreneur. Right now, I see bee bread and this propolis being an industry right here in the Big Island, or no matter where everybody's calling in. You know, bees are all over the world, and if they weren't, we wouldn't have food to eat because 85, as we learned, 85% of our food is pollinated by bees. So
75.
75. So we need to encourage bee stewardship wherever we live. So that let's move down. So we've got the royal jelly now. You said that that's the protein. So like if people are needing
Well, pollen is the protein, but
okay,
they take the pollen and they take everything and they make royal jelly. The youngest bees, after they first get born, their first job is to clean up the cell that they came out of. Then their next job is to make the royal jelly for the eggs and then for the queen.
yes.
And so I don't know, in China, they figured it out how to get the royal jelly, and you can buy it, but I've never figured out, how to do any of that. I just know that that's what they do.
So
And
why would somebody like say have royal jelly, or why would someone have the propolis? We know why about the honey, but what are the health benefits? Why are they in the health food stores and pretty mainstream in the natural foods industry?
well, because it's got all those things in it, which is the vitamins and the minerals and the proteins, and it's like an exquisite superfood that
Yeah.
is good for all beings,
But
humans
like
and bees.
it like you said earlier, like it's really important, and that's what I want to get into next, is why it's better to eat local honey, not just I'm not talking about the commercial honey, but if I eat local honey from what I buy in North Carolina versus local honey that I buy here, um, why is that better for me?
The main difference is that if you have any kind of allergies to anything that's growing around you, and so you have a seasonal thing where you have, cold, you get that itchy, cold, coughing, like you get have allergies, then in particular you really want to eat the local honey because that will help your body to handle the local stuff because they're making it from some of those things that you're allergic to, and it actually helps your body to be less responsive to it. Otherwise, if you don't have allergies, any honey is good. Like different kinds of honey is good for different things. Like that Manuka honey is actually from the tea trees over in New Zealand and Australia. And tea tree is such a potent herb, that's so good for your immune system. And so, Manuka honey is great, and it's a lot more
Yeah.
expensive because it's coming from far away. Um, and so
So the
every
Manuka honey
different,
is from the bees pollinating off of the tea tree.
yeah, that's what I believe.
Okay, so Manuka honey, and that was going to be one of my questions. Like, how is dark honey better than lighter honey? Just like with maple syrup, it's better. There's more minerals and nutrients in the darker maple syrup, but not necessarily in the same with honey.
All I know about it, because I'm just a beekeeper, I'm not an expert, is that every different kind of location makes a different kind of honey. And so I do know that on this island, when you have a whole forest of lehua or a whole forest of keavi, that honey, shortly after it's harvested, it turns like white and creamy.
Mm.
And mine is not like that. It's liquidy and amber colored, and sometimes it's a little redder or darker, and sometimes it's a little lighter. And since I'm not in an orchard with just one thing, and I am not always the one that's paying the most attention to whatever is going off, it's a combination of things. I just call it wildflower. My bees happen to not move around because I do top bar hive, which is different than Langstroth, which all commercial beekeepers do Langstroth, which is a different style of beehive, which is a different process in every way of getting the honey out and everything.
Mm.
Um, and so when you're just in an orchard with just one thing, then you know what it is. But mine are on a property where it has coffee and cacao and avocados, and mac nuts are pretty nearby. And then there's Christmas berry and widelia. And so mine is just sort of a combination of all of those things.
Yeah, you
And
just brought
sometimes
up
it's
a
a little
really good point right there. Sorry to interrupt you, Dawn,
lighter
but I
and
think
darker.
this is really important for all the listeners to talk about, to tune in. And because no matter where you are, on a dose of positivity, we want to leave you empowered to go out and make a difference in your community and with your life. And so we're talking about our food system, and we're talking about the importance of pollinating. And Dawn just mentioned her, you're around coffee and cacao and avocado trees and probably citrus. We need these bees. So like in encouraging bee stewardship wherever you live. I mean, this is planetarian and humanitarian healing at the same time. Whether you're allergic to bees and you can't maybe do a hive, but 50 miles or even 10 miles outside the city limits, there's acreage and land where people could be growing food, and we need these bees. So it's like standing up for their rights, right? I mean, the rights of nature. And the rights of nature are, we are nature, by the way. So it's our rights too. So, and then on top of it, you get this delicious byproduct of saving humanity and the planet. You get to have honey, and you get to have bee bread and propolis and all these medicinal properties, bee pollen from these incredible insects that are helping save our of the world, really. So, and so, Dawn, it's hard to believe that this conversation has just been. I might have to have you back on again because we only have 15 minutes, and I just want to do a couple of like really quick announcements because I do want to take off on that, and see if anybody has any questions in the Facebook or the LinkedIn where we're live stream. So, TJ, if you could check that, and Shane, that would be great. And also, we're going to pop in Tel's GoFundMe for all the new people who are just in. Please have a look at that, and thank you so much for your prayers and generosity. And also, I wanted to say that I see that there's a lot of people here in Kohala, and Dawn does sell her products at the local farmers market.
Farmers market.
And she is also going to be at Earth Day, hopefully at the artist co-op here. And there's a lot of questions that people are going to have now. You've let Pandora's box out as far as I'm concerned. I've got many more questions for you. But I also wanted to mention that our next week's guest, it's so great. I have two local people guests in a row, meaning in my own community, because it's very rare when I can grab somebody from here because it's the middle of the day. And a lot of our guest speakers come from all around the world. But next week we have another local presenter, and some of you might already know her. Dr. Alvita Soleil will be on talking about health, wellness, self-empowerment, with a new paradigm in healing. This woman has created a system called Beam, and she's an incredible Chinese medicine physician who knows how important our bees are, and also many things that will just blow you out of the water. And she's going to be demonstrating some very cool things to help us all gain more independence with our health choices. So hope you'll all join us. And if you haven't already put your email in the chat, please do so, and we'll keep you updated. I also wanted to say that, some of the things, Dawn, you brought up, going back to humanitarian planetary healing. The weather here today is unseasonably very cold. And we're having, it was supposed to be sunny here today, and it's not. So my husband and I were talking about the same thing in Homer, Alaska, where we used to live. Massive blizzard happened, almost dumping a foot of snow, and they said it was supposed to be snow flurries. Usually the weatherman is pretty right on, and just in 24 hours we're seeing right here, the weather that is so unpredictable. And so I do want to address, the climate crisis and weather, and affecting our bees, and how you deal with that too. I mean, I know that some beekeepers have to keep some warmth. Go ahead, your turn.
I just have never mentioned 5G, and I just really wanted to put that out, is that having your bees near any big power stations and stuff, it really messes up the bees a lot. Like if they're near there, they can't navigate anymore the way that they see. So that's another reason. That's another thing that's killing off the bees, is the power stations and the 5G. All that Wi-Fi and all that stuff is really bad for bees. So I just wanted to make sure that I said that.
No, it's really important. Thank you. And it's really. Go ahead.
What was the question? I just really wanted to say that.
No, I'm super glad you did. I was just talking about, just everything that's happening with the climate crisis, climate change. And actually one of the things that I was going to offer everybody, I forgot in the announcements what I just said, is, hopefully if you put your email in, we're going to send out everybody who's on the live show, an ebook copy of Conscious Cures, which gets into a lot of solutions to 21st century pandemics, which we're having right now, a pandemic of all many kinds: environmental, economic, political, inequality, fear, media, conspiracy. I cover all those things in the book, and the hard copy, the paperback is also on sale on Amazon, and we'll pop that link. But if you want a free copy of the book, please put it in there. But climate crisis, I was talking about the weather and climate and how that is affecting, or is it a positive?
Can I say something about that? I just want to I think that the government's doing it, with weather seeding, HARP, like a million different things. They do chemtrails. They're happening here. I think that humans and AI and crazy government stuff is causing that, and then they're using that to scare us. And there's hundreds of scientists that have gotten together and saying there actually isn't a climate crisis. Things do keep changing, and that's normal. And a lot of people are making a lot of money off of this whole idea. And so I just don't, I don't believe it. And anything that is happening, I think it's man-made on purpose. when
Yeah.
they had that weird hail in Texas, and then it wasn't even really snow. They tried to melt it, and it was like plastic. I mean, all these like really insane things have happened that are man perpetrated,
Yeah.
that are going on in the world. That's what I
Yeah.
believe.
Well, but that's a discussion for another time. Let's get back to bees because I it's not that I agree or disagree. I think there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. But meanwhile, we want to leave people, our audience, with some is some empowering things that they can do. And I really want to showcase and show off some of
Oh,
the products that you have created, Dawn, and that this is your little side hustle. And whether you're a steward of bees and want to be a beekeeper or not, but Dawn, out of her home, is creating these amazing products. These are beautiful candles. You could, oh, really zoom in there. Aren't they gorgeous? I love the little Buddha one. I have the little Buddha one. Yeah, and these make really great gifts. And she doesn't sell online, but we're gonna pop her website in there so you can see this. This is more giving you guys ideas. And these are byproducts. So she's making beeswax candles out of these. And Dawn, one of the things I wanted you to talk about with the products, and you're also making soap and honey and mead. And this is how she's making the mead there. She's got several batches of mead going, which is honey wine, right, Dawn? And
yeah.
it is delicious, and it definitely gives you a terrific little buzz. And Dawn, after this, you're going to have to come over with a bottle of mead, and we're going to celebrate. Um, but yeah, like let's talk about you know getting back to not the dark side of the government, but let's talk about the positive
What can we
side.
do?
uh, what let's talk We can talk about that another time, but I want to just finish with these beautiful products because the benefits of beeswax candles versus most candles that you get in the store are petroleum based products, and they're very toxic.
Mhm.
And with all the environmental toxins going on in the world, and with all the amount of candles that people burn with these flavors, stinky stuff that's making them sick and creating allergies. Let's talk about your bee candles and the benefits of why people should reconsider their flame in their home.
Absolutely. Well, they burn much slower and longer, and they
Smell great.
actually smell wonderful. I never put any scents in mine because they just smell like honey. And there's studies that have showed that they actually kill bacteria in the air. And yeah, they're definitely wonderful, especially if you don't try and burn them all at one time, put it on
Yeah,
for 2 or 3 hours and then blow it out, and then it'll harden up again. And, so you always want to put it in some kind of a container that will hold whatever does turn liquid, and so that it can hold it so you can burn it again and
yeah,
again and some, even these candles, like for example, some people like for meditation, just a votive. I had a friend say that she lit it for an hour every day and it lasted well over a month, of
wow.
meditations. So definitely better to use the your beeswax candles than to use paraffin or any of those soy, and they're just toxic. And
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah, and
beeswax
a
candles.
lot of people don't realize how toxic those candles are, and that they're inhaling the flames from that. And those scented candles, they're creating environmental toxins in the air, and also you're perpetuating the fossil fuel industry with yet another
Right.
product that is disguised as a candle, when we could be using these beeswax candles. And then the soap, I love your soap, the beeswax that you use, the soap. Let's just talk about what the benefits of having the honey in the soap, and how
Well,
the
I
benefit. Mhm.
I just want to say I'm an artist at heart. And so this being a beekeeper just allows me to, and a chemist maybe, or an engineer or something. I just love
Yes.
making things of all kinds. And so it's just been so fun. It's hard to get lye here, which all soap is made from lye. It's called a saffronation process. So I've only just done that once. So I buy kind of a big chunk of already made soap that's just basic, and then I add beeswax as a hardener, and then a bunch of different really nice oils that are moisturizing, like moringa and jojoba and almond oil and coconut oil, and and then and then a bunch of essential oils like oregano and frankincense and lavender and tea tree and vitamin E, all these other oils that are healing to the skin. I actually make a salve with all those things in it, which has more of the wax in it than the soap. And it's been very healing for people with eczema or like dry, patchy things. I love the my body butter
Yeah.
has really been, a lot of people have really benefited from this, and I just love making it. Shea butter and cacao butter too in there. And then the soap has almost all the same things in it, except for all those things are mixed with the already made saponated soap. And so it's moisturizing, and it feels good on your body. And a lot of soaps are just toxic, and they just dry you out, and they're
Mm.
just not good. So I don't add any scents except for it's there's frankincense and tea tree and lavender, and so those things kind of combine and they smell
And
good.
they're wonderful, and they last a long time, and they make great
Yeah.
gifts. And we're not trying to sell anything here because most of you guys don't live in Javi, but you can go to the farmers market and support your local farmers, bee stewards there. I got to read this. One of our guests on the show wrote this. Alan, this is so great. Bees shop locally. They were designed to produce a natural product that benefits mankind as a food source. Study homeopathy because it's like homeopathy, right? Any all these bee products, right? If you stop and smell the roses, then you inhale a flower essence that permeates the air, your breath. Would you rather breathe a city gas, exhausted factory smoke, or a country field full of wildflowers? Life goes
Mhm.
on and on and on. Alan, thank you. That is so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, these are all things we want to consider in all of the choices that we make. And Dawn, really our time is up, and I just want to thank you and everybody who's come live to the show and who's listening to the replay. And Dawn's website is there, and if you want to contact her and ask her any more questions, because you covered a lot of stuff, and I am so grateful for your wisdom, your knowledge, your dedication, and for Mariah too. A shout out to your daughter who goes out and actually, if she's like the bee doctor. If a swarm happens, Mariah suits up and goes and collects those bees and finds them a home.
And
And
she teaches people and helps people get started with beekeeping and catches wild swarms and, helps people learn or goes onto their property and tends their bees. And so she does a lot of different things differently than what I do. She helps other people with their bees and either getting started or ongoing or whatever it is that you want. So she's a bee whisperer, in my opinion.
a bee
Really good with
whisperer.
them.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Well, John, is there anything else you want to say before we go off? And anybody who wants to stay on after the show is over and ask any questions, you're welcome to. But any last parting words to inspire us all to go out and be stewards of the bees and bee whisperers?
I just think it's an amazing thing to be part of. Their vibration helps us to have a higher vibration. And when we're around them, we feel better. And we just helps us to tune into that higher vibration, which is what's going to save humanity, is all of us getting a higher consciousness and a higher vibration and feeling grateful and being more connected to our intuition and to God in whatever way that comes to you. And so beekeeping and stewarding and being around them and helping them is just, I'm so grateful that I get to do it. I encourage anybody that's interested to do it in whatever way they can. It's a steep learning curve at the beginning, but it's worth it.
Dawn Barnett, you are a gift and a blessing to the world. Thank you so much. Big,
Thank
big love to
you.
you all, and aloha.
Aloha.